Hello and welcome to today's episode. This is probably going to be one of my favorite episodes that I filmed so far, just because I have a very special guest with me here today, which is my sweet rainbow baby. Little introduction: this is the Joy with Jesus podcast, and I'm your host, Andrea Lanza. I've been doing this for several episodes now, still getting the hang of it and whatnot, but if you are new here, I just had a baby, so I took a couple weeks off, like a maternity leave. But other than that, I do plan on getting back on track. So this is where you will be able to find weekly biblical encouragement, along with testimonies of how other people have come to find their joy with Jesus. But today, I do want to talk about the joy that Jesus gave me and overall this very redemptive birth experience, and just share with you guys my birth story. I am so excited because it is so God ordained, and I couldn't feel more blessed in this season of life that I am in right now. Bear with me because I do have a toddler that is napping right now, and then my baby who is a little colicky and just seems like he's uncomfortable a lot because of gas and whatnot. So if you hear him grunting, that's what that is. So if you didn't already know, I did have a miscarriage last year in 2024, and we did have a missed miscarriage. So we didn't know we lost our baby until we had gone in for the first appointment. That had happened earlier in the year. I believe it was February that we found out. And then I tried to let my body pass the baby naturally, but it didn't end up happening. So I then took a medication that was prescribed to me by a midwife, and she gave me, I think it's called misoprostol, something along those lines, which I ended up in the hospital because I was bleeding out too much. So I needed a D&C procedure, and that day fell on March 12th, 2024. Now, fast forward to my baby's due date. His actual due date was March 6th. Now, I was thinking to myself, okay, my baby will either be born on March 6th, like his actual due date, because my other baby that we had miscarried, their due date fell on September 6th. So I was like, okay, it'll fall on the 6th, right? Because God is a God that is going to redeem this pregnancy. So I was like, he's either going to be born on the 6th or he's going to be born on March 11th or 12th, because the March 11th in 2024 was the day that I took the medication to help my uterus begin to pass the remains of the baby. But then I ended up in the hospital, like I said, within 24 hours. So it was on March 12th. So I was like, okay, he's either going to be born on March 6th or March 11th or 12th. And so I was praying. I was like, Lord, please let it be on March 6th, because I really didn't want to have to go super past due my due date again, because I ended up going really past due my due date with my daughter, almost to 42 weeks. And it's just a hard waiting game. So I was really praying that it would be on March 6th. Now, for my 40-week appointment, which fell on March 6th, up until that point, I had no cervical checks, just because I wanted to be as low intervention as possible, because my ultimate goal was to have an unmedicated and natural birth. And so I went into my appointment on March 6th. And to my surprise, one of the doctors at my location informed me that I was 6 centimeters dilated. And when they told me I was 6 centimeters dilated, my jaw dropped to the floor, because I was like, there's no way. I have been feeling no contractions, no Braxton Hicks. I was a-okay. And I honestly was like, maybe like labor is not really coming anytime soon. Obviously the baby has to come out one way or another very soon, but like I just had no symptoms. And when they told me that, they're like, you very well could be having a baby either tonight or this weekend. And all my family was like, you'll definitely have a baby this weekend, if not today. And that did happen to fall on a Thursday. And so I was just so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm already 6 centimeters. You only need to be 10 centimeters to be able to push the baby out. So I was like, this is going to be a very fast delivery, which is something that I was praying for. Now Thursday came and went, no baby. Friday came and went, no baby. Saturday, then Sunday. And so that was pretty discouraging because I was like, wow, when am I gonna have my baby? And it was just like a waiting game because I literally was already 6 centimeters dilated. So we had scheduled another appointment on Monday, which was March 10th, and that was with my midwife. And so that day my husband went with me and we opted to do a membrane sweep with her to try to like get the process going. So she stripped my membranes on Monday and told me that I was still about 6 centimeters dilated. And I think there was some sort of like holiday or spring break maybe coming up. Yeah, I believe it was spring break. And so my midwife was going to be off that Thursday through the weekend. So she told me, if you don't have this baby by Wednesday, which is March 12th, then you're going to have, just an OB at the hospital. It was just like more things that I was low-key starting to like not really trust God in that moment. Because I was like, God, like, where are you? Like, I really want to meet my son. And so we start my membranes on Monday, and that day I really thought was like, okay, that for sure will have work and my son will be here like any moment, because my midwife had also offered to break my water that day, and she's like, if we break your water, like things are gonna happen pretty fast. But I don't know, like I was a little fearful and I was just like, no, like I just want to be like as low intervention as possible. Like even them stripping my membranes, I really didn't even want to do, but I was just like, just kind of getting like that into that desperate state of mind. And so I was like, no, it's okay, like we won't do that. And so she's like, okay, well, let's schedule you for an induction on Wednesday, because that Thursday I was going to be 41 weeks officially, and they didn't want me to go like 2 past my due date again. And so we scheduled me for an induction on Wednesday, and it was like so like discouraging because I was like, I didn't want to be induced because I was induced with my firstborn, and I was put on Pitocin because my contractions never came naturally, and that was like just so hard and the like worst feeling ever. I ended up getting 8 centimeters dilated with my daughter, and then I tapped out and asked for the epidural. And so I was like, oh my gosh, if they put me on Pitocin again, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle it. Like, it's just going to be way too hard and too strong, and I won't have the unmedicated birth that I was looking for. And so I was just like really discouraged, and I was like, for Lord, please, please, please let my baby come tonight, which was Monday, or tomorrow, which was Tuesday. And I was like, please don't let him come on Wednesday. I don't want to be induced. I want to do this naturally as possible. And so Monday came and went, no baby. And Tuesday came and went, no baby. And my mom had come over to spend the night since she was going to be helping me in the labor room. And my husband took off that week as well because I was already 6 centimeters dilated, and we didn't want to run the risk of him being at work and my water breaking, or I started to go into labor, because things were going to happen very fast, since technically anything after 5 centimeters dilated is considered active labor. And we also do live kind of in the country, so to get to the hospital it's about a 25-30 minute commute. So at this point, it's Tuesday, we have dinner, and my mom's like, all right, well, your baby's definitely going to be a March 12th baby. So we went to the hospital. My midwife wanted us to be there at 5 a.m. in the morning. So we get there really early, we get checked in, and they wanted to put me on, oh, and I totally forgot to mention this. So the way that my midwife was going to induce me, she said she was going to put me on a medication called misoprostol, which, if you recall earlier in the story, that medication is the same medication that I had taken the year before to get things going for my miscarriage, and that's what put me in the hospital due to like major blood loss. So I had so much fear around that medication, and when we got there, I already had that in mind that she wanted to put me on that medication because she did tell us that on Monday. But on Wednesday, whenever we arrived to the hospital, I told the nurse, I said, okay, I'm changing up the game plan. Instead of you guys putting me on this medication, I would like for the midwife to just break my water, and we'll see how my body reacts to that first, and then if needed, we'll have, another form of intervention. My main fear with that as well was just that my body wouldn't progress after my water being broken, because I know after 24 hours of your water being broken and no progression, they'll tell you to get a C-section. So it was just a lot of concerns maybe within this birth that I was starting to overthink. But the nurse went ahead and told my midwife the new game plan of what I wanted to do. So the midwife said, okay, that sounds good. She was going to be at the hospital by 9 a.m. to break my water. So the nurse said, okay, in the meantime, since I was there very early, they wanted me to go ahead and walk around the hospital floor and do specific movements, swaying, to basically get baby in a good position and get things going. And so in my head, I was like, oh, well, I've already been doing all the curb walking, all the things to naturally induce labor, and it didn't work. And so I was like, all right, I guess I'll do it. And so as we were walking around for a couple hours and doing the swing, I kept feeling the need to pee, right before the midwife was gonna come. And so I kept going to use the restroom because I just felt like I couldn't really hold in the pee that I thought. And so I just kept having to go to the restroom. And then when the midwife came at 9 a.m., she went to go and break my water, and she's like, there's not a lot of water that's coming out. Normally it's a big gush. And she's like, have you been leaking? And I was like, yeah, I have been. I started leaking this morning as I was walking and doing these exercises. And so she's like, oh, I think your water was already starting to break. And so I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. It was just, I don't know, it gave me encouragement, because I was just like, Lord, I really wanted to do it as low intervention as possible, and now my water's just breaking. And so at 9 a.m. they had me lay down in the bed still after they broke my water, and had me on my side and in a peanut ball between my legs so that they could rotate my baby, because he was at I think they said I don't know, he just needed to be rotated. I really don't know what position he was in, but he was head down, but he just needed to be rotated. And while I was laying in the bed, I started getting small contractions. They were very minor, very manageable, but I could definitely feel them, and it just felt like a really strong period cramp. But I was kind of okay, stuff is happening. And the nurse did check me before I got on the bouncy ball, and she told me that during that short amount of time that I was actually now at 8 centimeters dilated. So that was super encouraging, because I was like, wow, I've been getting minor contractions, but they haven't been as bad. So I was like, I only have 2 more centimeters to go before I can push my baby out. And so I was literally like, God, thank you so much, because it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? And so they had me there for 20 minutes. So after 9:20, I got up from the bed and I labored on the bouncy ball. And my contractions were coming every 3 to 5 minutes apart, and I definitely was starting to having to breathe through them. But I really enjoyed being on the bouncy ball, and my husband was there, and he was doing counter pressure on my lower back to help me work through them. And so I remember I was listening to my Christian playlist that I had made with pretty hype music to get me going. But then all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is actually starting to get a little bit more intense. So I had my mom put on my Christian hypnobirthing so I could really focus in, because they were starting to get more pressure and just more intense contractions, but they were still coming every 3 to 5 minutes apart, and lasting for about a minute or so at this point. around 10 a.m., I was really having to like lock in and really focus on these contractions. And I feel like at this point, I was definitely in like la la land. Like I was just not really there. I know my mom was trying to like pop little jokes to like get me to like lighten up or like just help me, kind of made me take my mind off the contractions, but I was like, I was not there. And so I remember just starting to get like really hot, and I was just like needing my mom to fan me. And then I was so thirsty as well, so my mom just kept giving me water while my husband was doing counter pressure. And I feel so bad because he, like, I could feel his hands like shaking because I just kept saying like put more pressure, because it, like, the more pressure he applied to my lower back, the more it helped me like with the contraction and not be as painful. And so I told my mom I need more water, and I was doing like the low groanings, so she went out to the nurse's station to get me more water. And so I think this was like maybe around, I don't know, it was between like 10 a.m. and 10:15. So within like those 15 minutes or so, she went out to get me more water. And that's when I was in transition, and I was like really feeling it. I remember I wanted to try a new position. We still had the ball, and I got down on the floor with my knees on the floor, and then I was leaning over on the ball because I was just like really wanted to try something new. And I don't know, for me, like moving in labor, like I don't know if I was like tensing up or whatnot, but I really didn't like that. Like when I was getting a contraction, all I wanted to do was be completely still. Like I did not want to bounce on the ball. I didn't want to do anything. I just needed to be like completely still. And so before I had gotten another contraction, I did want to try a new position to see if it would help progress things. And I just remember like things really ramped up, and I felt a lot of pressure. And I was, from what I remember, like just groaning, but my mom said like I was screaming and she could hear me all the way in the nurse's station when she was asking them for more water. And so she told me that the nurses were like, okay, like we should probably go check on her again. I remember the nurse comes in and she's like, honey, we need to check you. I need you to get on the bed. And I was like, do I have to? I really don't want to. And she's like, no, honey, like we need to check you. And so I got out of the bed and I was laying down, and that was like the worst position. I really did not want to be on my back because that hurt so bad to get a contraction. And so she checked me, and I remember like I was not screaming like a high pitch, but I was like, like, and groaning. And so then she checks me, and I remember she's like, okay, you're 10 centimeters. It's time to get ready to push your baby out. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Like I just kind of like, I don't know, started freaking out. And I remember being on the bed, and I had like my birth comb where I was like doing the counter pressure on my hands to help with the pain management of the contractions, which I highly recommend a birth comb. I loved it so much. I will actually link in the description box down below because it was fantastic. It helped me 10 out of 10 with this birth experience. And so I just remember I kind of started like instinctively pushing, and she's like, no. She's like, wait, we need to wait for the midwife to come. Like she's not here yet. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I can't stop. And so she was like, it's okay, like breathe with me. And for me, that felt like an eternity, right? But it was like 10:20 at this moment. And so then the midwife comes in, and they are helping me with like pushing. So they were telling me like, when you have a contraction, I need you to push. And I feel like I do remember the midwife saying, do you want to get on a different position? Because I think I was on my side. But because I literally, when I was getting a contraction, I could not move. Like, I just wanted to be completely still. I told her, no, it's okay. Like, the thought of like me moving into a different position terrified me, and I just like, I couldn't fathom it. Although I do wish that I maybe gotten like my hands and knees so that it would have helped with like gravity, but I don't know. So then they kept telling me when to push and whatnot, and this was the hardest part of it all for me, is the pushing. Just because, one, I felt like I was on my back, and I mean, you are pushing a whole baby out, but I don't know. I kind of went into like a panic mode, and this is the only time when the thought of getting an epidural like crossed my mind, although I didn't say anything out loud. But in this moment I was like, wow, like I can see why people get the epidural, because this pain hurts really bad, and I was like wanting to ask for it, but I knew it was too late. And so I kind of like started freaking out because the pain hurt so bad. And I remember at this point I did start kind of screaming, and this is when my nurse was like just an angel from heaven. Like I literally could not thank her enough. She was coaching me through the pushing, and she's like, Andrea, like you doing this is not helping you or your baby to get your baby out. Like I know you are in so much pain, but it's almost over. She's like, I need you to work with me here. Like, you've got this. And so I remember my husband was right next to me, but I just remember locking eyes on to the nurse, because she in that moment was my safe place, and I could still hear the Christian hypnobirthing in the background. And I really did feel so much peace in that moment. And I just remember looking at her and locking eyes on her. And if she like looked away for a second, I was like, oh my gosh, like I just kept looking at her. Like I don't know, like she was my safe place. And so she kept coaching me on how to push and when to push. And I don't recall ever feeling necessarily like the ring of fire. It just definitely felt like, well, I guess it did, because it was like a burning sensation. But more than everything, like it felt like the biggest poop of my life. And so after 25 minutes of pushing, my son finally came out, and I totally see what the Bible means by, you know, that verse where it says when a woman's time has come, like to give birth, the labor pain, like she's in a lot of pain for labor, but once her baby's here, she's so full of joy. Like that verse resonated with me so much, and it's like the first thing that came to my mind, because like it was instant relief. Like obviously like things hurt down there, but it was just instant relief. And they put him on me, and I think I kind of like blacked out at that moment. Like I don't really remember, other than like the footage that I have, but I do remember being like, I did it, and like just like breathing a lot. But they told me that my son, when they weighed him, was 9 pounds and 3 ounces. We were all shook. Like no one in my family would have guessed that he was 9 pounds. Like we all thought, at least I thought he was gonna be like at least 8 pounds, since I was always measuring a little bit bigger like in my belly. But they never told me like I was measuring big for my appointments and whatnot. And my daughter always said they always told me that she was measuring small. They just told me he was measuring like just perfect. So yeah, he was 9 pounds, so he was a very big baby. And I did get a 2nd-degree tear, which was not ideal. I got a 2nd-degree tear with my daughter as well, although I had the epidural with her. So they did stitch me up down there, but it didn't hurt. I mean, they gave me like lidocaine, I think they said, or was like some sort of numbing cream or injections. I really don't even know, but they gave me some stuff to help out with the stitching. Stitching process took about 15 minutes. I think during that time they were doing stuff with my baby as far as like, I don't know, like newborn things. I really like wasn't all there, but I don't think he was laying on top of me while they were stitching me up. I did in the room of where they were stitching me up. I looked up, and I don't know, it's not like it wasn't a mirror, but it was, I could see the reflection of myself and like my whole body within the lights. I don't know how to describe it, but I could see my reflection when I looked up, and I looked up way too long before I realized like what I was looking at. And I just remember looking down there, and I was like, oh my gosh, he tore me up. Like it looked awful. So I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. And I just remember they kept saying like, I'm almost done, we're almost done. And it just felt like forever. I felt like they were stitching me up for an hour, but it was only about 15 minutes. And then after that, you know, I don't know how long we were there, but then shortly after, I went to use the restroom, and they took us to the postpartum room. But yeah, that's my birth story. I mean, overall, between the time that they broke my water and my son was born, it was less than 2 hours. So he was born 15 till 11, so about 10:53 a.m. And they broke my water at 9, and that's like when the whole process started. So it was definitely like the most ideal and like dream birth that I could have asked for, because it just went so fast. And like I don't know, like it was amazing. And I tell my husband now that for our next baby, I do want to go ahead and do a home birth. God willing, it's kind of like the same experience where I like dilate super far and it's like fast. But yeah, it was just an amazing birth experience, so God ordained. And like when my head kind of came to it, I was like, wow, like 1 year ago I was in the hospital having an emergency surgery to help with the blood loss of my miscarriage, And exactly 1 year later, I'm giving birth in a hospital to my rainbow baby. Like, if you say God's not, like, I don't believe in coincidence. Like, God is real. God completely restored this birth. And now I have my son here, and I could not be just more grateful and blessed. And I just look at him and I'm like in complete just like shock. Like, I'm like, oh, like this is my baby. Like, I just look at him with so much love. And this postpartum experience has just been so amazing compared to the last time with my daughter. And I don't know, I just have like a different perspective of life and all the things, and I'm enjoying motherhood so much. It's just been amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, I have hard days, or not necessarily hard days, but like hard times within like the days, and I just remember like I have to, like, I don't know, remind myself of the blessings that I have and really practice and hone down on self-control. So I've been practicing doing that, and just really trying to stay in tune with reading the word and being in communion with my Father in heaven, and just knowing that he's there for me, right? Like, I sometimes know like people can feel alone during this time, and don't get me wrong, like hormones, like the postpartum hormones, girl, like those will get you. And you know, there was a couple of times when I just felt really alone, like the first week or two, but then I would just like be crying just to be crying. Like, I just felt like really overstimulated for certain moments, but now like I'm kind of out of that postpartum fog, and he's such a great sleeper. And yeah, it's just everything that I could have prayed for and more. And God is so restoring, and he's so redeeming, and I have my baby here, and I'm so happy. I just look at him with so much love and adoration, and I love him so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of my redeeming birth story. But I love you guys so much, and I will see you in next week's episode. Stay tuned and be blessed. Bye.